I remember my first hijab, that is, my scarf. It was pink. Simple, I know, but to 7-year-old me, it was everything. A symbol of my maturity, that I had finally grown old enough to cover my hair like all my other sisters did. I wore it day in, day out, without fail, even if it didn't match my outfit. I remember bragging about it and rubbing it in the faces of all my other little cousins that I was a big girl now and they were all still children. I remember waiting around the washing machine and hanging it, and to this day, I still have it with me, somewhere, underneath the pile of all the other hijabs that I bought over the years. If 7-year-old me had met the Naima of today, she would be horrified. It's unfortunate and I'm ashamed to say it, but I do not wear my hijab. My hijab wears me. When I walk into a shopping center and a person looks in my direction, I want to disappear. When a person speaks to me differently, thinking that I do not speak English properly, I silently beg the ground to swallow me whole. I hated it, and for a while, I hated my hijab for it too. Though it was subconscious, over a long period of time, I began to change aspects of myself to compensate for the problems that my hijab had caused me. Whenever I caught the eye of a stranger on me, I'd smile to show how normal I was. If I ever spoke to a stranger, I would purposely change the way I talked to sound cheerier and happy. I did all these things and more, yet it never occurred to me why. Who was I trying to explain myself to? To impress? The public? I hadn't realized it, but I had separated myself and other Muslims from the general public. I could be myself around my family and friends, but the public were something to fear, to shy away from. I could laugh out loudly and wear my hijab normally, but I should keep my head down and my mouth shut around other people? When had I developed such a mentality? I remember when I was 9, I took a walk with my mom and we got shouted at by a group of people in a car. Things like, go back to where you came from and bloody Muslims. It was a moment I'd never forget. My mother, a strong-willed, sassy woman, had become a passive little mouse. She looked down, face expressionless, and walked away. In my entire life, I have never hated a piece of material so much than I had in that moment. It had never even occurred to me that it was a bad thing. Hijab is something I wish people would see through the dark image that has been stamped upon it. If I could change anything at all, it'd be the bad reputation that hijab has in society for my sake and for all the other young women that are put down and harassed for their decision to wear one. In a recent study, it was found that out of the Muslims who do wear hijab, 79.6% had been the targets of verbal threat and physical harassment. 1/3 of the victims had their children present at the time. Most occurred in public spaces such as shopping centers and train stations. Furthermore, there was no intervention in a shocking 3/4 of the cases. This study was taken in Australia in 2017. That was last year. For a country who prides itself on its forward thinking, we sure know how to take several steps back. The literal meaning of hijab in Arabic is veil or barrier, something that shields you. If I choose to wear hijab, isn't it my decision and my decision alone? I was with my little cousin the other day, and you know what she told me? She said, Naima, we're so unlucky. I was confused, so I asked her why, and she said, you and I, we have the worst combination. We're women, black, and we're Muslim. We might as well sign a death warrant because we'll never be considered equal. It made me sick. A 10-year-old girl like her shouldn't even have those kind of thoughts. To think that she probably turns away from all these amazing opportunities because she believes something like the religion she practices has made her incapable of taking part in them. What kind of world are we living in? When did it ever become okay to make a young girl feel disadvantaged because she wore a headscarf in public? When a person says that a hijab is oppressive, they are taking away a woman's right to speak for herself. How can they make these accusations without putting themselves in her shoes, without taking into account that this was her decision, without understanding the fact they are making fun of a person's decision to live their life a certain way? How can they go to sleep at night knowing that she now feels ashamed of herself, that she now feels oppressed because they thought they could play lawyer for a client who never hired them in the first place? I wish people would see that the intention behind hijab is so pure and beautiful. I cannot be oppressed by an act I choose to practice myself. Stop telling me otherwise. Stop trying to protect me from an act that you yourself are committing against me. Don't tell me how hijab makes me feel, because that is something I should be telling you. I might be young and I might not have half the experience that some people have in this room, but I've lived long enough on this earth to know that a hijab is not a symbol of oppression, but evidence of a decision a woman chose to make. And I can only wish that one day the world will come to understand that too.